Hi everyone, Donnie here, and I've got some exciting news to share with you. Over the past few years, AI to Z has taken us on an incredible journey. We've explored everything from artificial intelligence, aviation, mental health, energy innovation, and some inspiring career paths across STEM. But now, it's time for something new. Starting June 17th, AI to Z will be rebranding to the STEM Career Coach. Why the change? Because at the heart of every episode, it's always been about the people, the stories, the pivots, and the growth. We've been highlighting real professionals across science, technology, engineering, and mathematics who are building impactful careers and shaping the future. The STEM Career Coach will bring you those deep dive conversations that you love, with even more focus on career growth, mentorship, and helping you navigate your own career path within STEM. So whether you're just getting started or looking for your next big leap, I've got your back. And of course, we'll keep the same spirit, energy, and community that we built together.
Welcome to the STEM Career Coach, hosted by Donnie Maclary. Whether you're starting out or stepping up, this is your guide to growing in STEM.
Today, we have an exciting guest that has been pioneering diversity, leadership, especially within the tech communities. We have Telle Whitney here with us today. Very excited to hear more about yourself, your journey, and the future and how you see it. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's lovely to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Why don't you tell us a bit about your book that you've got going out? Why don't you give us a bit of information about that?
Okay, so well, I've worked in technology for a long time. I started in very early years, and when I came to Silicon Valley, I had this passion for creating the technology. At the time, I worked very much in the chip industry. That's where my background is, and I just felt this passion. But over the last 15 years, I ran an organization to bring more women into technology, the Grace Hopper Celebration. And I saw all these young women coming to this conference. They were so excited about technology. They were so excited about creating a different future. And many of them would go into the sort of classic technology companies. And just after about 5 years, they would leave. And I saw this time after time. And I really felt like there was a different way of creating cultures where you focused on inclusivity and also innovation. Innovation is absolutely key to technology. And here's one of the secrets that I discovered is that there were places where this was happening. And I wanted to understand what they were doing at these places. I'll make a comment about Asia and many of the tech groups all over the world is that technology is almost inherently global. I mean, most companies have teams that are around the world. And so understanding how you create cultures that are also global, but are also innovative and inclusive is really important.
It is how you get the best value out of these employees, driving them, empowering them, and most importantly, giving them a little bit of flexibility and freedom to be their true selves. A great introduction, and it really leads into, one of the first questions I have for you today, which is, what do you believe are some non-negotiable traits of a great leader in today's tech ecosystem?
What a great question. So the book is based on the 6 C's. I didn't say that, but it's creativity, courage, confidence, curiosity, community, and communication. And those 6 C's I have observed really help set the state of the culture in front of you. And so as you think about the key characteristics of a leader, probably the most important is listening. I mean, that is where great leaders are different from other leaders, many of whom we've all met.
Absolutely.
But it's listening, but also having a vision of where they wanted to take their innovation. So it's not that you take every idea, but you listen carefully and figure out how to go forward.
I always feel that great leaders, in my opinion, are people that don't think that they know everything. So they surround themselves with great, bright individuals that can almost bring that, collaborative, ecosystem to the forefront. And then from there, they're the person that actually leads the charge. They have those difficult discussions, a little bit of the political side of things, but also just ironing out some of the wrinkles that maybe some of those people boots on ground cannot do. But I absolutely agree. If you don't understand the people around you, and if you don't take the time to listen to them, how can you understand, what's important?
Right. And I would add to what you just said, as you look at those people around you, you want to make sure that you're hearing different ideas and that you're
Yes.
not just choosing people who look and act like you. And, we talk about that as diversity, but it's really diversity of thought. It's cognitive dissonance of finding ideas that really challenge your own thinking. And once again, great leaders find that they are going after these kinds of suggestions that aren't just
Mhm.
comfortable.
It always reminds me of the definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result.
Right.
Which is absolutely true. If you want to do something different, you should absolutely be asking different people and different kinds of questions, and maybe diving a little bit deeper for potentially some things you might not want to hear.
Right, exactly. And, if you look at the literature, it's also true that as companies are wildly successful, they really
Mm,
put this structure in place that's more command and control. And those kinds of structures, if you're not careful, will make sure that some of your best ideas from some of those great people around you are not being heard. So you really do have to challenge your own thinking about how you're soliciting ideas.
absolutely. Oh, this is so exciting. You give me chills a little bit. I
Oh,
love this
that's
topic.
great.
Yeah. So how should leadership evolve to better serve, diverse technical communities? Now, one of the things I'm very passionate about is diversity in technology. One of the things that really resonated with me when I first took a job brief, or when I first started looking for candidates within the tech space, was how lopsided it was to one gender versus another. And I
Right.
very quickly, saw that, it's because I think it might have been my American New York side of my family. I saw that as an absolute opportunity, where I started partnering with these individuals, helping them get the visibility that they need. Also, making sure that we are not supporting that from our perspective. We keep on sending certain types of individuals for all of our roles. We're just as bad as the people that aren't hiring these individuals, in my opinion. Uh, so this is, on across all, I guess, parts of the assembly line. It is about, trying to help serve, these diverse technical communities, one candidate at a time. And if you're looking for candidates, I'm the person that's going to be providing those types of people, because my job, or Airswift's job, is to help add to cultures. It is to help add to
Right.
these communities. And I'm curious to hear, how should leadership, really evolve, to kind of serve these, up and coming, diverse technical communities.
Well, I love that your company provides a pretty broad set of people for the companies you work with. That's fantastic. I saw this with the Grace Hopper celebration because increasingly there was well over 300 companies that were there who were trying to recruit these top women. I mean, just incredible women, and many of them were hired. I will say the challenge that I saw is that they were not integrated. They were not, their ideas were not surfaced. So it's not enough to just hire people. You really have
100%.
to figure out how, yes, figure out how you're giving them opportunities to lead certain projects, how you're thinking about who's promoted. So it's really how these people act and contribute in your company, not just who you're hiring. Although if you don't hire them, Donnie, I mean, you can't you can't promote them. So it's a,
Of
it's
course.
it's really an important first step to be able to think differently about hiring.
Absolutely. I think mindset change. I think that's what really resonated with me, through what you were saying. It really is about not just, hiring these people for the sake of, looking good. It is hiring them, because they are good and you see value in them, and you would like them to be able to add those diverse ideas, to the teams, and hopefully, drive some of the initiatives and innovation that, everyone's trying to, chase for.
Right. And I do think that first recognizing that talent comes in all shapes and sizes
Amen.
is the first step. But then you want to bring them in and you want to think about who's contributing and how you try and suss out if these new people can contribute. Allow them to contribute, at the beginning, fairly in a small way, but continue for them to have opportunities. And I do also want to comment that this is particularly important with global teams. I mean, think
Yes.
about it. One of the people I interviewed in my book, he had teams in California and Taiwan and Texas and China and all
That's a
these
lot of
all
different
these
food.
teams. Yes. It's they had very different mindsets, and yet he was able to show them how to work towards a common vision and solicit ideas from all of these different places. It's not easy, but the results are much more impactful.
Oh, absolutely. Why hire someone or, bring them on board if you're really not going to try and get the best out of them? And I love, Texas, Taiwan, it's what honestly kept me here, as an American living in Asia for almost 13 years. It is just
Oh my
amazing.
goodness.
We kind of blanket Asia as this one big, umbrella, but every single country is completely different. From language to food and things like that. So embracing that,
Yes.
I think is
Yes.
fantastic. And it's great to hear
Yes.
that people are
Yeah.
doing so. Speaking about, I think it's very important, to really nurture the next batch of leaders in the technology space. And I'm curious, what advice you would give professionals transitioning from, IC, hardcore technical roles into leadership.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question because it's important for the leadership of the companies to give them roles. And some of the ideas that I've seen work quite successfully is ensuring that everybody communicates. So in your team, when you have team meetings, looking around the room, scanning the room, and ensuring that everybody contributes in some way. And if they don't in the meeting, ensuring that you follow up with them afterwards. You want to give them a chance. All the high priority projects that you are included, you want to question yourself about how you're choosing leaders of these key task forces or projects and giving different people an opportunity to shine. You want to reward team efforts because if you find, I mean, in technology, one of the big myths is that these individuals are really the superstars and other people don't contribute. And once again, there's a lot of social science and also writing. In particular, Walter Isaacson talks about even the great lone geniuses were not lone geniuses. They worked with a team. And so understanding that this is a team effort and figuring out how you allow your team to contribute.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, no offense to the superstars out there, but a lot of times superstars don't make the best leaders. They're very good at really diving quite deep, and essentially very good at their expertise. But the people that are the good collaborators are typically the best leaders. The people that can really get the most out of everyone around them, surround themselves with those smart people and kind of, take and pull and then really kind of bring the entire, culture up. Is what I've seen and heard of, when I've had similar discussions with technologists. Uh, Now, one thing that is, I would say, a theme when I'm speaking, and I've had previous discussions with female technology leaders across the globe, and they speak about mentorships and mentor programs. And even, I want to kind of take away the mask of that. We are not just talking about, someone of similar background and similar background mentorships. We are talking about all types of mentors from all the different backgrounds that can help someone to really strive for their greatness, see that potential in them. Now, I'm curious, how you think mentorship programs can be structured to genuinely, I think is the hard word there, is to support women and underrated talent in STEM.
Right. Such a great question. And mentorship and sponsorship are both, two forms of mentorship that are really critical to to nurturing that next generation. We've always had mentors, but many of the leaders from the past find people that look like them, and with consciously or unconsciously, they spend time trying to nurture that talent. And so when people look differently, that's when mentoring programs can be the most effective, because you're breaking these unconscious barriers of how to mentor the next generation. And, all of my mentors were men, or up till a few years ago, at least, because the people who had what I wanted, the people who could tell me how to get where I needed to go, were men. I mean, because there just weren't that many women. Over time, I also found mentors that were women, and they are some of the most important people in my life. You also want to think about sponsors, because the sponsor is the person in your organization, hopefully not working in the same line of command, but that can help you get that position that you didn't even know existed. So people who are really playing advocate role for the up and coming generation is also really important. Now, you asked specifically about mentoring programs, and they can be successful with attention and ensuring that these conversations are really helping. I have a friend who runs a mentoring program in Boston, and she looks at the mentee and the mentor, and she spends a lot of time figuring out how these matches are made. I mean, mostly they're not at the same
Fantastic.
company. She finds mentors from different companies, and then she also helps seed some questions between these mentoring sessions to help these conversations. Because all too often, if I come up to you and say, okay, tomorrow you're a mentor, you aren't necessarily going to know how to be the most successful mentor for this person. And so figuring out what are the things that you really want to mentor young people on, young women, underrepresented groups, is really important.
I would sum up a bit of what you said as, preparation. Really taking the time to, understand exactly what the goals are of this program. And also
Mhm.
finding the right people, because I have come across people that have been pushed into mentorship positions. Said, hey, all right, you're at X amount of level in your career. Here we go. All right, now it's time to be a mentor. When sometimes it is not the best scenario to, get the most out of someone. And also, as far as what you suggested for your friend in Boston, come out with questions, kind of setting the playing field as far as, here are some things that would be great starting points with your mentor. Maybe share with them what you're looking for, what your areas of
Right.
interest are, maybe what you would like to be one day. We can talk 5 years, 10 years, maybe 20 years down the line, but then at least there's some baseline to go off of, a bit of information that can be
Mhm.
shared and maybe excite, the mentor or the sponsor, as far as, oh, I remember when I wanted to do this and now they are where they're at, and that's, I think, is kind of the ideal scenario. Someone that, achieves something that they're very proud of and would like to help the next generation of leaders, no matter where they are, what I would say background they have, but ensure that they have the skills and the right, game plan to try and, accomplish something that they're looking for.
Right. So I agree. And it's important to have mentoring programs, but I also, sometimes mentorships are organic. I mean, most of the mentors that I've had, I just walked up to somebody and I asked them a question, how would you approach this problem? And they help me with it. And then you do that with maybe somebody else, and you continue to show up and ask questions. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you find the right mentor. The example you talked about happens all the time. I also remember a woman, a principal engineer. She was her mentor, her assigned mentor, was the only woman in this company that was in a
Of
senior role,
course.
but they were in HR, and so they had that the person she was assigned as a mentor was chosen because she was a woman, which was not the right choice. She
Not at
really
all.
needed to find somebody who could help her um, rise to that next level.
Yeah, and that's an amazing example as well, because typically that's where a lot of, female professionals will be. And I don't want to take away the bias that it has to be, a person of same gender, same gender, like you mentioned for yourself. For a long time, the people who had those positions were males. That doesn't mean that you can't have a male mentor And trust me, I think there's a lot of people that really recognize that there is a wide range of people that have amazing skills and talents. And hopefully those are the people that you find to become those mentors to guide them through their journey. Now, you mentioned something about, you used to go up to someone, and I would love to talk about, the importance of professional connections. And what advice you would give to early career professionals, especially women, on building meaningful professional networks?
Such a great question because networks or communities are so important. I mean, that is why we had such success at the Grace Hopper celebration because it became over 30,000 people. And women
Amazing.
shared again and again the story of coming to the conference and finding like minded people that formed a community that they then depended on for years. I mean, many of those connections um, exist well beyond the conference.
That's
The other
amazing.
thing, the place the connections occurred was when a group of people came from a specific company. So, Microsoft might
Of
send
course.
20 people and those 20 people got together and they came from across, Microsoft is a global company. So they're going to have people from all over the US and at least some of them will be global. And they had a chance to connect with each other. And that also lived beyond attending the conference. So finding professional connections is important. I think that there's a lot of places to go where you can you surface
For
those
sure.
connections. I mean, the conferences, some conferences can help provide that um, very effectively. And just going to sessions where you feel like they're talking about the important topics for you, and then introducing yourself to the people who are talking about is one way that people expand their connections.
Also, we live in a age of technology. We've got LinkedIn's, there's all kinds of groups and platforms that really followed a lot of your success, and a lot of subject matter expertise groups are starting to be unfolded as well. Now, one of I guess, the advice that I get as far as when I speak to leaders and they're talking about, how do you find someone? How do you approach someone? How do you kind of make that initial kind of introduction? There's a lot of ways that are quick wins. You can look at people in the same field as you, same company. Educational, a background is actually one of the biggest keys to success. Someone that's went to your alma mater, then maybe is something that you would, someone that you would like to be. There's a lot of ways that you can get creative with finding these people and outreach to these people that really kind of get their attention. I want to be you one day, as a tagline. I also went to your same university within the same field. I see that you went to the same professor who's still there, make a joke about that and build, a connection that way. Because one of the problems that we're seeing is almost everyone wants a mentor. Everybody wants a top tier mentor, or someone that they can add to their professional network. So you do want to be targeted. You don't just want to top 100 leaders in data and you message every single one of them to try and add them to your network. It doesn't really work like that. You be a bit creative and tactful with your time. And as we alluded to earlier, prepare. You want to have a bit of a plan of what you want to do. And that's, what I've seen as far as I've done a lot of professional networks, a lot of events, especially all throughout Asia. And that's one of the things that, people think they can just walk up to someone and just kind of, instantly kind of build that connection. I feel that if you have a bit of a targeted approach and, you have a plan and have some topics to speak about that would interest this person or that is mutually interesting to the both of you, then I think from there something can build that hopefully turns into that mentor sponsorship type of relationship.
Yes, I mean, and online is very prevalent. There's no question. You do need to go back to basics and make sure that you are making a real connection. I mean, for example, on LinkedIn, I often get these, requests to connect with no apparent reason about why they are asking. But if somebody I respect connects me to somebody, I almost always say yes. And in my case, do try and at least, I mean, if somebody asks, I do try and set up a Zoom call or some other call to talk to them at least once. I mean, many people will respond if you ask them and you come with a real problem. So that you want to solve and you listen. So I do think that thinking about how to make connections, but then also online finding places where there's real communities. I mean,
True.
there's women in data science, which you must know about. I mean,
Absolutely,
and that's a
100%.
global.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huge now.
I mean,
Huge.
it's huge. It's global, and it's a great example of how people come together in meetups. And it's not just one-on-one or listening; they really do form this community, which I think is very exciting.
Absolutely. And I've been lucky to have many discussions with a few of their founding members. And I've had them on previous podcasts as well. And it is amazing to see, what has happened behind the scenes in the beginning of, groups like Women in Data specifically to where they are now. Where almost every single, female data scientist or in the data domain, that's one of those first things that pop up as far as what they like and what they're following, and they've got hundreds of thousands now, which is exciting.
They
It
do.
changes the foot, as
They
they say.
do. And if you take a step back and think about this, I mean, I had a whole chapter on communities.
Mm,
There's this yearning for community, and so as they created this organization, and because it was virtual and because it was global, it touched that deep yearning. I mean, it just exploded, and people found a way to build on that same platform and
for sure.
connect with each other. It's wonderful how that happens. And there's women in cybersecurity, I think,
Yep,
and
yep, yep.
there's other groups that come together, and it's really this deep yearning for finding community.
Oh, absolutely. We're humans, aren't we?
We are.
Now, as we speak about, I guess people in underrepresented, communities and also, backgrounds, there is, this need to, manage the mental aspect of things and some of the stresses that comes with being someone that I would say is underrepresented or someone that is not really getting the, I guess, the limelight or justification that they deserve. So I'm curious of, the pressure of underrepresentation often takes a toll, and how can leaders better support mental health among, diverse teams?
A lot of my experiences with women, but I also sit on the board of something called the Center for Minorities and People with Disabilities. And
Oh,
underrepresentation
I know.
varies
Yeah,
from
that was what
country to
stuck out to me the
country,
most.
Donnie.
I
I
love that.
it's it's so in the U.S. it's Black or African American and Latino, Latina, and Indigenous, but different countries may have different underrepresented groups, and so
Absolutely.
it all comes back to this feeling of belonging. If you're on a team where you're the only, and you see that you're the only, you may be able to get support from leaders in that group who recognize the position that you're in. And I mean, many of the people I interviewed for this book are people like that. But you can also find offline support. I mean, that's the Grace Hopper Conference is for women, and they're getting offline support. The Tapia Celebration of Diversity in Computing is also for these categories, and they can get offline support. So I do think that you can find places where you get advice, but it's not necessarily in your company. It's just ways to more effectively thrive in your company.
I do feel that change is afoot, though. The fact that we are having these discussions, leader are having these types of discussions. Last two companies that I've been with, and Airswift is one of them as well. We have, mental health hotlines that are available to us 24 hours a day. If anything happens, I think companies are, especially after COVID, I feel, people's mindset and the way they feel during work has been really pushed to the forefront. But of course, it depends on your background, the types of, pressures that you have or the type of, mental stress that you have. And to recognize that certain backgrounds of individuals do have more stress, do see more or come across more resilient. We want to try and nurture them and add that additional support. But I feel that should be across the board. Just work and pressures, just really affect mental health. And as long as we have something or someone or companies are, taking steps to, at least you have someone you can talk to outside of your reporting line or outside of your company and keep it anonymous. I think is something really smart and very ingenious what they're trying to do.
Yes, and I will tell you that this varies a lot from different companies. I mean, if you are at a company where you have a hotline that you can call, a confidential hotline, and get support, that is fantastic. And I know many of the
I
companies
count my
take
blessings.
those very seriously. So they exist. But if you're not so lucky to be
Mhm.
at such
Correct.
a company, you want to figure out how to get resources and who you can trust to ask about these kinds
Exactly.
of situations. And that's the place where some of these groups that we're talking about can provide feedback, because you have to be somewhat careful. I know of many cases where people asked for help and they were basically they were fired, or they were like their responsibilities were changed, or they were discounted, or there's just places where they were not taken seriously. So you need to realize that what you're saying is really important, even if your manager is telling you it isn't. You need to find the place to get that strength to continue to ask for help.
Absolutely. And we hope that some of those companies leaders are listening now and, start taking some steps to try and, nothing happens overnight. But as long as we try, as long as we try the solution and come up with different ways of doing, then I really feel, the future is pretty bright.
I agree. I agree. If you have these companies that are really focused on innovation that will really change all of our lives, but also truly respect their workforce and value their ideas, I mean, I can't think of a better place to be.
Absolutely. And, I wouldn't be doing myself justice if I didn't ask some questions about rebooting tech culture. I know you've been quite generalistic now, but, your book highlights a contradiction many tech leaders hold, promoting diversity on one hand while revering the lone genius, as you called it, often male, on the other. Why do you think this belief persists, and how can companies move past this?
Well, that's such a great question, and that's in many ways at the heart of my book. You know, diversity was this idea that many companies have just adopted without really believing in it. I'm sure you've had this experience. Someone told them they had to do it, so it's a checkbox. But the
Oh,
best
100%.
companies, the ones that are truly innovative, um, welcome these ideas. And technology is changing. I mean, this lone genius myth is going to take a while to to um, to get past, but that's primarily in the tech companies. I mean, I come from the tech business, and I certainly know many of the tech companies, but today, Donnie, all companies are tech companies. And there are
100%.
many places, yes. And so you want to recognize wherever you are, whatever company you work in, whatever is your business, that innovation is possible, and that you want, and to support the idea of a team and inclusive, and not just focused on the lone genius. The issue that we face is the past. I mean, there are just some people that believe this, and changing their perspective takes time. And
For sure.
if anybody's listening to this podcast, if you find that it's not working, I mean, one of the times the decisions you may have to make is to find a different job. I mean,
Of course.
there really are organizations that you feel like you belong, that you can contribute, and there really are organizations where what you believe is not considered very important by your leaders. And if you're beating your head against the wall, you want to sort of take a step back and figure out, what can I do? What can
Of
I do
course.
differently? And do I need to go?
Yeah, absolutely. And come see us at Airswift. That is one of the
Okay,
things
see,
that we can come this full circle, okay, so but absolutely. It is about, if you're not in the right place, I think there's a saying that is quite famous that, a rock is just a rock until it is in the right environment, and then you notice that rock could potentially be a diamond. You are guilty by association.
right.
And if you're not in the right place, then you are not setting yourself up for success. There's a diamond inside, but you need to find the right environment to turn that pressure into that diamond that you're looking for.
Yes, and I have seen this, Donnie. I mean, that's one of the advantages of this long I've been in this a long time, is that I saw people who were just starting and they were given more and more responsibilities. And these were, the ones that I know are usually women or underrepresented groups, and they thrived. They were successful, in some cases, the CEO of the company. And others who probably had equal contributions to make went to a place where their ideas were not recognized and they languished. And what I also see is that many of them decide to leave the industry. I start my book by talking about a couple of really talented people that just leave. Because they felt like they don't belong. And so we lost them. They won't contribute to our technology future. No, they're a lawyer, they're a doctor, so they will contribute to our future.
Yeah, they're successful someplace else.
Yeah, but we want them to be part of our technology.
Of course. I always joke and say I'm not a technologist, but I play one on TV. Essentially, technology is everywhere, and if you're not using technology, and that is what I love about, a lot of these programs that are bringing people of all backgrounds together, because unique perspectives is built, in a lifetime. And someone that, came from a different type of background, worked their, butt off to, be as successful as they are. They have very unique perspectives and very unique skills and resiliency and, tenacious, because that's what you need in innovation, because the answer isn't there. You got to create the answer in some cases. Sometimes you have to merge multiple disciplines and multiple aspects of technology to make one kind of simple idea a reality. And we are in that world. We are there now. The future has arrived. But, for people that maybe are in a company that's not as innovation or forward thinking, that is going to crush that spirit. That is going to be something that's going to really hamper that potential. And that's why, I think, the Grace Hopper celebration and a lot of the conferences that you're doing and a lot of those, I would say boards that you sit on, like the Center for Minorities and People with Disabilities in IT. We need people like you in these positions that can really be a voice for all of those individuals and really, shed the light that should have been shed probably many, many years ago, but it's better late than never, and start changing some minds, some opinions, and most importantly, start putting some things into action. I'm so incredibly honored to, have you on today and to share your journey. And most importantly, I am so happy that people like you are really, really working so hard to change a lot of mindsets. And I really hope that in May, when your book is released, that many people purchase it, which will lead to many more people changing their mindsets, thinking before acting, and hopefully maybe undoing some of those bias that are inside or, that we know about.
Yes, and the world depends on it. That's the part that I believe passionately, is that the technology is changing our lives. We want people's ideas in order to create these different futures. I have no question. And so I hope that all of your listeners are part of that.
Thank you for listening to the STEM Career Coach with Donnie Maclary. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more inspiring stories and actionable tips. Catch you next time.